What's up, book babes? Get comfy, get cozy. It's time to chill. I'm Cassie.
And I'm Emily, and this is Book Bits and Chill, the podcast where we break down every chapter, thirst over fictional men, and never take ourselves too seriously.
Oh, yeah. And holy shit, am I excited for this episode. I cannot wait to talk about our book that we're kicking off for our June read along, The Knight and the Moth. Today, we're talking through chapters 1 through 10. I wish we were talking through the whole book because I have had to stop myself multiple times from binging this entire thing.
But I
Uh,
need I need to break this down because there's a lot that happens in each set of
Correct,
chapters.
correct. So, yes, Emily, kick us off with how we're going to be going about this read along because it is a little bit different from our last one.
For Knight and the Moth, we're taking a little bit of a different approach. So we're going to start off with chapters 1 through 10 and do a little speed reads, a little speed recap of what went
Oh,
down. We're not going to give you all the dirty details because you should do Rachel a favor and pick the book up and read it yourself. But
agreed.
we're going to do a little speed recap, and then we have a few reoccurring segments that are going to happen every episode. So
Mm.
there's three right off the top, and it's moth to flame moments.
Oh, wonder where they got that.
I wonder where they got that. Moth to flame moment. It's the scenes that really hooked us like a moth to a flame and really drew us in. Okay?
Wow, we're so witty.
Yeah. We also have trope tracker. What tropes, what micro tropes are we seeing in this set of chapters? Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
we'll talk
Do we
about
know what a trope is?
I've decided a trope is whatever you want it to be, but some examples are like the one bed in the inn. That's like the most
Ah,
famous one.
yes.
We also, what's another one that's really popular? Oh,
Enemies to lovers.
a virgin.
Exactly. I think like
Exactly.
I think surprise pregnancy is a trope. Like these tropes are unhinged.
There
So
are.
you know
So that's
what?
why
Whatever we say is a trope is a trope.
exactly. And then we're going to get into quote of the week. Did they really just say that? Because some of these things we either need to theorize, talk about how
Mm,
spicy they were, or just laugh at.
mm. Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. Or
And
maybe
then
all of the above.
correct. And then we're going to finish it off with a few other segments, bits of the week, which we've done before, which is kind of just like free form, best friend, chit chat, sleepover vibes.
Oh.
And then just for fun, because Cassie and I talk about this a lot, we're going to finish with Would We Survive? And we're going to talk about would we survive this book if we were in it for this set of chapters. So, Cassie, kick us off with speed reads.
All right. And so we kick off the book in the world of Trom. And I think I'm saying that right because I listened to the audiobook to check myself on all of these things. So Trom is basically an old name for an even older land, and it has five hamlets, which are basically like regions of this area. And so
Provinces.
provinces, there we go. They're provinces of this area. And so within each of these provinces, there are obviously different vibes, all of that good stuff that we'll get into later in the book. So we start off in Ashling Cathedral, which is essentially kind of the epicenter of Trom. This is where all these hamlets kind of revolve around. We enter the book with our female main character. Her name is Six.
Ooh,
And yes, I know, she is one of six what are called diviners, which are girls, and we will find out why they're specifically girls at some point in the book. But they are girls who are essentially called the Holy Daughters of Ashling's Cathedral because they're essentially like very close to the gods. And these girls, previously to being diviners, we don't know anything about them basically. All we know is that they were what are called foundlings, which are orphans within this world. And we don't know why they were picked as orphans to become diviners, but they essentially were brought into the cathedral. They became these kind of holy beings, and people from across the land essentially come to the cathedral to have these diviners perform this ritual that is very interesting, and I will already
Very.
spoil that I would never survive. So they essentially have to drown within this holy water from the Ashling Spring. And so they do this ceremony where their head honcho, this like Mother Supreme, her name is the Abbess. We don't know her actual name. She just goes by the Abbess. Essentially dunks them in the water and holds them down until they drown, and then they start to dream. What do they dream about? They dream about their gods, which are called the omens. And so there are six omens, and all of these omens have these like stone objects that are like magical objects. But there is a sixth omen who is the moth who doesn't have a stone object, which is very interesting. So this moth is something that we continue to kind of see throughout these initial chapters, but we don't really know much about. So when the diviners dream, they essentially look for like good or bad signs to see if the omens favor these people that they're dreaming for or not. And we get our first taste of that when the king of the kingdom, the new
The
king,
king of the
the king of the
kingdom.
kingdom, his name is King Benedict Castor II. And let me tell you, he is a young king. I think he's like 17 years
17.
old. And he shows up, and as he's like going into his new kingship, he's like having to go through these different ceremonies, and one of them is a divination. And so he gets his divination performed by our gal Six, and she essentially dreams of all of his omens, and spoiler, all of his omens are bad. And so she essentially comes out of the water, and everyone's like, oh my God, he's a cursed king. He doesn't really care, which is kind of funny, but
It is
whatever.
weird. He like kind of brushes it off, and you're like, okay, I would be shitting my pants.
Correct, correct. And so through all of this, we find out a little bit about Six as well. And we find out that she actually knows her name and that it was Sybil Delling before she was named Six. But she never uses it. She doesn't speak it out loud. It's like hush hush. She only goes by Six, which also I found very interesting that she was the number six and the sixth omen is the moth, who we don't know anything about, and there's six omens. It was very interesting. So
Okay, okay, don't get ahead of
that's
yourself, chapter one.
sorry, sorry. So yeah, that is kind of weird, and I guess we'll revisit that at some point. But anyway, so we learn a lot more about these diviners, and they are basically like young Catholic schoolgirls. Like they are like by day just super clean, polished, like holy, devout, whatever, and then by night they just literally are insane, like ready to go make out with boys, ready to get drunk, ready to smoke this thing called idleweed that's basically marijuana. They are just ready to get into any of the debauchery. And so they are talking about doing these things. And Six is like, she has never really had that much fun in her life, basically. Like she's tried to have sex a couple of times and like doesn't really love it. She doesn't go out, whatever, while all these diviners are just like frolicking around. So she kind of gets made fun of it because we also, during all of this, meet this very broody knight who wears charcoal around his eyes and he has three earrings and he's like
Ooh.
kind of an asshole and he's just like shitting on everyone. So him and Sybil or Six obviously have like great banter. She hates him, he supposedly hates her, all of that good stuff. And he basically just calls her a complete killjoy. And so she's like, well, fuck you. Me and the diviners want to go out. And she essentially like uses this like moment that she found the king and him and another knight, her name's Maud, drinking from the spring water, which is
Ooh,
apparently
no, no,
illegal.
no.
We're not sure why it's illegal yet, but we'll, I guess, find out at some point. So she's like, if you don't take us out, then I'm gonna tattletale on you. And he's like, fucking fine. So she riles up all the diviners. We kind of get a flavor for all their personalities. So they end up going out and having some fun with the knights. And that's where we kind of leave off, and I'll let Emily pick up.
Yeah, so this is like the ultimate sneak out. So it's like, think high
Oh,
school when you had to sneak out the window, your mom's sleeping, you had to go underneath the shadows. This is actually what's happening.
underneath the shadows.
So them and the knights sneak out to Colson Fair, which is a town in this kingdom of Trom, and then they're having a little dance at night, and King
Oh,
Castor introduces them to a fun game that the knights play, and it's kind
oh,
of what they call challenge of craft, correct?
I think so.
Yes. And so what the rules of the game is like whatever you do, so like if you're a knight, you're probably going to be challenged to like fighting, war, those types of things. You get to
Uh-huh.
choose who you challenge, and if you lose, the rule is that the person that challenges you gets to pick what you've done, and if you win, they have to run around naked.
Sounds like a truth or dare
Yeah.
ordeal.
I'm telling you,
Yes.
very high school.
I love it. I love
So,
it.
our knight, our brooding knight, his whole name is what again?
I think it's Roderick Mendacious.
Mendacious, Roderick
Yes.
Mendacious, but they call him Rory. So I'm going to call him
Yes.
Rory because that rolls off the tongue better.
Agreed.
The king challenges Rory to a challenge of craft, and Rory says, okay, I'll do it, but I get to choose who tries to take me down. And he chooses
Ooh.
3 of the diviners, specifically 1, 4, and 6.
Oh.
And they do accept the challenge. And they have a little girl moment and they're like, we can do this. So 1 and 4 go first. They try and they fail. And then 6 goes, and Rory's kind of like taunting her. And she's like, I'm
Mm.
tired of this shit. And runs at him like a football linebacker, knocks him to his ass, and is like, I win.
I loved
Now,
that.
what they got to get Rory to do because he lost was he had to do a private divination with 6. So
Ooh.
this takes us to the next chapter, and it's 6 and Rory at the divination pool in the cathedral. And they have brought the gargoyle along. So there's gargoyles that kind of
Uh,
like, I don't know, what would you say? They like protect the cathedral,
yeah,
or they protect
definitely.
the diviners as well, I think. They're just
Yes,
like a form
both.
of protection. And
Yes.
they all come in different animal forms. And there's one that we meet a lot, and he is a bat gargoyle. And he seems to
Hmm.
be kind of in charge of taking care of 6. So he follows her along. So 6 is like, if you're going to be a part of this, you're part of this, and makes him come to the divination with her. So the gargoyle drowns her, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to be just like the original scene we saw. Wrong. She's going along this like quiet, concrete, cold corridor and sees the moth. And you're kind of
Ooh.
like, oh no. And the moth is not holding a stone, like Cassie said before, because we don't know what her object is, but she's standing over the other omens that are in the shape
Hmm.
of gargoyles. And she is kind of looming over them like she might be the one in charge.
Oh.
So she comes out of this and she's like, holy shit, what happened? And the gargoyle's like, Rory's gone. He didn't care to stay. And you did literally nothing. So nothing happened. And she's like, okay, what a weird moment I just had, but I'll come out of it. So she goes back to the little diviner's cottage to go tell her friends what happened. And one of them is missing. And it's
And
4.
I remember reading that like late night, and I was like,
Yeah.
where is she gone? At first, I thought she like ran after one of the knights, so.
Yeah, so that is a good point because 6 it goes to the abbess and is like, we have to find 4. Like something's wrong. And the abbess is like, forget about it. She's run after one of the knights. You're
Uh,
also like horny for these knights. And
yeah.
we learn that they're only there for 10 years at a time, the diviners. So they've only been
Mm,
there, they're almost up to their 10 years. So the abbess is like, let her go. You guys are
yeah.
almost like at expiration anyways. Just forget
Yeah.
about it. So she
Yeah.
goes back to bed that night and wakes up. 2 is gone.
Oh,
and,
reliving this is tough.
and she's like, oh my God, something isn't right. She decides to not talk to the abbess this time, but sneak out to go find the king and Rory because she's like, something's weird. The knights were here and now all the diviners are missing. They know what's up.
Right.
So she sneaks out. She tries to go to Castle Lubric, where the king is supposed to be. He's not there, and she gets sent away. So she's like trudging back to the cottage, and upon her return, 3 is gone.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
She goes to sleep that night, wakes up, 5 is gone.
Ah, another one.
Who does that leave? 6. Only her. She's
Wait,
the last one left.
has one disappeared yet?
Some point in there, 1 is gone.
Anyway, 6 is the only one left.
6 is the only one left. They're all gone. At this point, the abbess is like trying to put bars on the windows. They're locking the doors. The gargoyles are watching them, but
Yeah.
without fault, she wakes up and one of them is gone. So she is the last one left, and she's in the house and she's like, I think something weird is happening. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. As she's thinking this, a weird shadow comes over and Rory appears in her
Rory.
room. And she's like, Rory, I knew you were behind this. Like, tell me where they are. What's going on? And he's like, I don't know anything. I'm here to save you because somebody told me you showed up at the council and were screaming, the diviners are missing. So I came here to
Yeah.
check on you. And she's like,
Yeah.
yes, get me out of here. I don't know how you ended up in this locked house through a window. We're going to talk about that later, but get me out of here. So they decide to escape, and Rory shows her that he has this magic coin. It's smooth on one side, rough on the other, and it helps him walk
Oh.
through walls. So that's
Ooh.
how he got in the house, and that's how they're going to leave. At this point, you're like, did he use this to take all the other diviners as well?
Why is Rory hot and taking diviners? These are the questions in my head.
And do they like it?
And do they love it?
Yeah. So they leave the house and they're running from the gargoyles, and the abbess is like, hey, get back here, you're my most special friend, I need you, and Rory, you can't take her, you naughty knight. And they're like, sorry, we got to get out of here. And they do this by traveling through walls with the coin, but the coin
Yep.
can also break stone if it's thrown. So he's hitting the gargoyles with the stone and with the coin, and it's breaking them. And our bat-like friend gargoyle just is like, hey, take me with you, I need to get out of this place as well. So we now have Rory, 6, and the gargoyle all
Uh-oh.
escaping the
Crack team.
abyss. Yes.
A team.
A team. More like D team acting as A team, but that's
Pretty
okay.
much. That's fine.
So they start their travels and they're basically passing through this large city called the Siege, where they run back into Maud and King Castor. And she's like, I know you guys are up to something. And they're like, do you really want to know? And she's like, I feel like I need to know. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, come down this sketchy alley with us into this shop if you please. And she's like, I please.
If you dare.
So she walks in and she's greeted not very nicely by a man that is in a shrouded cloak with long fingernails and eyes of stone. And you're like, what's going on here? And then she looks at his hand and he's holding the inkwell from her divination dreams.
Dun,
Dun, dun.
what a cliffhanger. Okay.
Cliffhanger.
Also, you talking about a shrouded cloak made me realize that I totally forgot a huge detail at the beginning, that these diviners have never seen their eyes before, and no one's seen their eyes also,
Right.
because they wear these things called shrouds over their eyes, and basically picture like a mesh cloth that they like tie behind their heads. And so they don't know what their eyes look like. People are desperate to see their eyes. It's like this weird, like fetishized thing that like whenever they're out, people are like, please show us your eyes.
Do they even have eyes? We don't know.
We don't know. We know that they can see, but we don't know what they're seeing from. So, okay, a lot happened within these first 10 chapters.
So many.
I mean, Rachel, she is fucking brilliant.
The world building was very strong. It was a lot. You had to keep up with it, but it was strong.
Yeah, it was very thorough. I was just so impressed by her writing style, because I felt like even though she did a lot of the world building, like I never felt lost really. And I was doing the tandem between the audio and reading, and still I felt so immersed.
Yeah.
But then her character development is also incredible. Like,
yeah, you're really jumping to bits of the week.
Sorry, I just needed to fangirl over her, and I couldn't help myself. But also, one thing I forgot to mention too is that the gargoyle, the bat-like gargoyle, calls everyone Bartholomew.
Oh yeah, he does. It's very funny. But then I find myself wanting to call him Bartholomew.
I also keep calling him Bartholomew, and it's all like in a British accent on the audiobook too. And so he's always like, Bartholomew, like Bartholomew. And I literally the other day called my husband Bartholomew in that voice. And he was like, what the fuck is going on?
He's like, you've got to stop reading.
He's like, enough of your shit. Okay.
But how drawn in you were to this book is a good segue
Ah,
to our first weekly segment, Moth to Flame moment. So, what
okay.
was the scene that hooked you in, Cass, that was like, holy shit, I'm along for this ride?
For me, it was Six's dream that she had when she was doing Rory's divination. Like, it
Mmm.
was just the way that she described it was just so immersive that I was like, what in the fuck is happening? What does this all mean? Like, what does it mean that she's seeing this moth? That the moth is like, the moths like basically took over her shroud and like covered her eyes for her. The diviners are like in pain and peril. Like, she can see all the omens. Like, what does this all mean? But also at the same time, I was like, so so I was very, very locked in on that scene. I just thought she did such a great job with that. And it was like such a good kickoff to just everything falling to shit afterwards.
That's really interesting you say that because my moth to flame moment was the first divination in the book.
Oh,
At
the
the very
Kings.
beginning, the
The
king's
boy
divination,
king.
the boy king.
Mm.
So the reason I loved that was because she sees all five omens and she
Oh, yeah.
describes what they're holding. And she also describes kind of these scenes that she repeatedly sees. Like, so for the
Yeah.
artful brigand, he has coins, so she like falls on a bed of coins.
Yes.
And I just like loved the imagery of that. And I was like, oh, these are like big characters. Like these are
Yes.
going to carry us through this book.
Speaking of the king, we forgot to note that he, to his close friends, aka Rory and Maud, goes by Benji, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah, and because what his real name is Benedict.
Yes.
Okay,
Benedict
Benji.
Casta.
Okay,
Cool,
Benny.
Benji. But yeah, I agree. I just feel like the way that she brought a lot of the like scenes around the dreams to life in these early chapters was just so powerful. And like to your point, like the imagery, it was just so cool and very unique too. I was like, where did all this come from?
Yeah, and it answered a lot of questions, but left a lot of questions.
That's right.
And that's
That is
why I
right.
was a moth to a flame.
That is why. All right. Okay. So we've now been carried to the flame. Let's talk about our tropes that we were tracking.
Oh,
I feel
yeah.
like there was a lot in here. Like, obviously, there's
Yes.
like clearly an emerging enemies to lovers between Rory and Six.
Yeah. Enemies to enemies to
Enemies to
enemies and then
enemies.
lovers. Maybe. Like
I also
they really are liking each other right now.
No, they really hate each other. But then there was like some note about like when she saw him and she like felt the pull in her gut or whatever. And I was like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah, because the man has earrings, haven't we
Duh,
all?
duh. My entire life I'm being pulled to men with earrings.
Do they describe his earrings specifically?
I think that they were like three gold hoops or something like that.
Sexy.
Hot, hot. I
Hot.
immediately was like, oh my God, 14-year-old me would just have her underwear evaporate at this
Six stands
immediately.
no chance.
No, zero. Okay, what else did we have?
I like immediately picked up on like the chosen one trope.
Oh,
And
yeah.
for two reasons, because the diviners are obviously like this chosen group that can perform something nobody
Mm-hmm.
else can, and they're like thought of as like mystical and like
Mm-hmm.
they're going to speak your prophecy. But then also amongst that, Six is also like the chosen one by the
Yeah.
abbess among the
Yeah.
diviners.
Yeah. That is true. That is true.
And
I
I
like
was
that.
and I was kind of like, why is she the chosen one?
Why? I don't know. Didn't the abbess at some point say that she was like special and new or something like that? It was like after her first drowning when she was like a little kid. And she said something about her like being like very special and new. And I was like, oh, interesting.
But does it mean more? Is she covering things up?
Who knows? Also, I feel like these like prophetic dreams and these like visions that they're having are tropes. I don't know if that's a real trope or not, but I'm gonna call it one
I
because
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's just going to be such a thread throughout the book and like clearly something that like she's going to have to grapple with that she like has this power, but I also feel like it's probably something that people like desperately wish that they had too. And so that's why they're coming from like far and wide to pay for these dreams.
Oh yeah, and in
But
so many books and even movies, it's like, oh, I know this prophecy, but I can't really tell what it means, and we're gonna spend this whole
yeah,
time figuring it out.
yep, yep,
That's a
yeah.
trope.
All right, call
Add
it a
it to the
trope, baby.
trucker. Add
That's
it to the
that's a,
trucker.
that's a trope. Okay, what other tropes did we have? I feel like there has to be some sort of trope around these like knights like being good and bad knights, you know? Like there
Mm.
was so many things in there about the knighthood being like bonded to their like virtue and like protecting others and whatever, but then you see Rory like kind of be this like bad knight and like we kind of like it when he's
And
like actually maybe being good too.
which also is kind of the same thing for the king. Is like, is he a cursed
Mm,
king or is he
yeah.
actually a king of the people? Trope.
Trope.
If
Trope.
you just say
Call it a trope.
if you just say trope at the end of like literally every description
Trope.
of the book, does it count?
Cursed king. Trope. Good or bad night. Trope.
Trope. Prophecy. Trope.
Trope. Enemies to enemies. That's a trope.
One cottage in the woods. Trope. Missing girls. Trope.
Missing girls. Oh my God. Okay, I'm trying to think if I had any other ones. I think those were the big ones that I had in my
And I
brain.
think we don't know like what's gonna stick and what was just a moment.
True. But honestly, I feel like all of those things are sticking in my head.
Yeah, they're good.
They're
So
good.
I had something for quote of the week
Okay, what'd you have?
that kind of it comes off of one of the tropes of the chosen one, and like
Oh.
the abbess tells us why Six was the chosen one, but is it the truth? And
Mm.
at one point, the gargoyle, not Bartholomew, but the
Mm-hmm.
gargoyle, says
Bartholomew.
to tell a story is to tell a lie, isn't it?
Are you fucking kidding? That was my quote too.
It was a good one, I guess.
Yeah.
So you're telling me out of 10 chapters you had to go and pick the same quote as me?
I Bartholomew.
Bartholomew.
I did pick that quote, and I just thought it was a real. I mean, she kicked off the book with that quote first of all, when she's like doing that like flashback to like the gargoyles like
Oh,
story.
I didn't
Do you
even
remember
pick that
that?
up. No.
Yeah, yeah, it was like in the like prelude
Yeah.
essentially like to the book starting off and then the gargoyle said it when he was talking about his story too and
Yeah.
I was like, "Huh, okay. That's something I need to remember."
I think it's going to be a common theme throughout the book, but it was also really interesting to me because supposedly the gargoyles don't remember anything. They don't
Yep,
remember how they came to be, what their history is. They just know that they're supposed to be there for the diviners and for the cathedral.
yep.
But when the gargoyle says that, you're kind of like,
Hmm.
do you remember more? And you're lying.
Yeah, which I there's stuff to discuss there in the bits of the week that I have, but
And
I also think that that quote is just like a very powerful one in general. It's like we think about like even when we were just recounting our speed reads, it's like how much of that was like our memory and our impression in there versus like actual fact. Like when
right.
something is just retold and retold and retold, it's like how much true accuracy is there, but then also how much do we have to live off of history wise other than people's word of mouth. So it's
Exactly.
very interesting.
That was a big trope in history. Word of mouth trope.
Word of mouth trope.
Yeah.
Call it a trope.
What did they call like the bards that went around singing like the songs that were
Oh,
supposedly the truth but were definitely made up?
I cannot remember, but I love that you just
Yeah.
called them bards.
That's what they were called.
I
The
know,
bards.
but I just thought that that was great.
And that it was literally like a trope back in the day. Like, is this real life trope?
Is this real or is it a lie?
Trope.
A trope. And that's how the show Mythbusters was born. Off of the truth or lie trope.
And is this a lie or is this the truth? Rachel Gillig is a huge Mythbusters fan.
Rachel Bartholomew Gillig is obsessed with this Mythbusters. Bust that myth for me.
To tell a story is to tell a lie, isn't it?
That's right, Bartholomew. Okay, I feel like that's a good segue into the bits of the week because there's clearly a lot to discuss here.
Oh, yeah. And can I start with something that's kind of like overarching?
Mm-hmm. Of
Uh,
course.
I love that the chapters have titles. We have not gotten titles since the series of unfortunate events, since Harry
Since
Potter.
1998.
We have not gotten a title to a chapter in so long, and man, I missed them.
I actually totally agree with that because it like really sets the tone for the chapter in a way that I totally forgot about. Like chapter 3 is the foulest night in all of Trom. It's like, oh, I know exactly what I'm about to get into,
The
and I love
vibes,
that.
yeah. It's
The
kind of
vibes,
like
vibe
what if
set.
it's kind of like today's Instagram hook.
She's an influencer, people.
She's an influencer, people, but I love that. Yeah, it just like, and that is also like what keeps you wanting to read the next chapter because
Yeah,
you're like,
agreed.
oh,
You get a
chapter
little
11,
taste.
it's
Yeah,
called this. You're like, I gotta keep reading now.
that is such a great point. That's what kept happening to me as I was reading this, as I was binging this. So I
Yeah,
totally
the
agree.
authors need to take note, and we're not just doing 1, 2, 3, 4 anymore.
Write it down, Bartholomew. This I thought another overarching thing that was interesting was the like symbolism of stone and like we didn't talk about this, but Six is given by the abbess a hammer and a chisel when she's younger. Like they all have their trades essentially that like keep them busy while they're not dreaming, and Six's is stoneworking. But then it's like all of these omens have these like stone artifacts, and
Mm-hmm.
the gargoyles are made of stone. It's like all of these things are just very kind of surrounded by stone, and I just thought it was interesting that like she was also the one that was chosen to do the stoneworking.
Again, the chosen
The
one.
chosen one trope.
Exactly. And they don't really talk very much about why she's doing the stoneworking. She's just like,
Right.
I have to fix up the cathedral. I got to keep it nice.
I gotta keep things tidy over here around this
Yeah.
parts. Yeah,
Um,
it's interesting.
so speaking of the stone tools,
Uh-huh.
do you have any theories on what the moth's tool is?
Ooh, that's a good question.
So when she was in her vision, she was like, is it the cathedral? Is it the diviners? Is it the other omens?
Hmm.
Is she the leader of all the omens?
I don't know. I like kind of initially thought that it might be all the gargoyles because you know how
Oh,
they basically are just like they're like foot soldiers. It's like anything they're told they just like go do.
yeah.
And so I was like, I wonder if they are actually a tool, which also brings me, which do you have a theory? Because I have another bit of the week that transitions to.
I do not have. Oh, actually, I had like a miniature theory, but I don't know if it's true.
Okay.
It's a very far-fetched theory. I have a
Okay.
theory that
All right.
the moth's tool was the water they all drank.
Oh, interesting. Because it is like a magical thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And it,
Ashling spring water.
yeah.
Mm, okay.
But what
I
did
like
you want to
that.
say about your gargoyles?
About my gargoyles. So, okay, I thought it was really interesting that the gargoyles were like so easily mobilized against Six. Like when the abbess was like, get
Mm-hmm.
her,
Yeah.
like, and kill Rory, like when they're trying to escape.
Get
But
her.
get her and kill
That's her
Rory. And
voice.
yeah, exactly. Which also, I already have a fan cast for the abbess, and she's the lady from Game of Thrones that is like screaming shame in the middle of the street.
Wait,
Who is also in Ted Lasso.
I forgot about that. And
The
she's
The
so
Abbess
hot in
owns a
Ted Lasso.
soccer club. She owns a soccer club and she's the shame lady simultaneously.
Okay, I thought the abbess was like super, super old. And so I
Oh.
was picturing her as like Baba Yellow Legs from Throne of
Oh,
Glass.
interesting. Okay, I could see that.
I was like, do we know how much history she has there or how long she's been there?
No, we have no idea. And I don't know why I just instantly kind of went to like a 45-year-old woman in my
Oh,
head.
I was like, she is 235, but the water is keeping her young somehow.
She's just drenched in spring water that's
Yeah.
keeping her at 45.
Except her voice. And so that's why she's like, go get him.
Go get them. So she is like, go get them. And the gargoyles just attack. And I was like, this is so interesting because it feels like our gargoyle, Bartholomew, is
Hmm.
literally the only one that's able to essentially like not listen to her and like make his own decisions. Like the fact that he was even able to escape with them, like he was like attacking the other gargoyles, like to help Six out. Like I just thought that was so interesting. And we, what?
Which makes you think exactly what I was saying earlier, that does he actually remember more than he says?
Well, probably he does, because he also is a very emotional gargoyle and he is like very protective over Six. And we kind of learn through like little things that he says that he has just seen so many diviners come in and out of the cathedral and it like makes him sad the things that they have to go through and all of that stuff. And I was like, interesting.
And the
Why
other
is he
ones,
traumatized like
yeah,
this?
and the other ones seem to just be like a weapon
Hmm.
to him.
And I thought it was really interesting that he was given to Six in the first place, like who is the abbess's favorite, and she's like the special sweet girl, but then she's like given the gargoyle, who is like technically a rebel amongst all the gargoyles.
But does the abbess just think he's dumb? A-
Maybe.
And she's like, he's the least likely to slip up because he's so
And
dumb.
yep, and she just fucked around and found out real
Yeah,
quick.
she did.
He
So
said, "I'm out of here."
I need to talk to our audience about something privately.
Oh, okay, let me just see my way out.
You can say,
Oh, thank you.
but I see all over Bookstagram, Book Talk that every single person fan casts every MMC as Henry Cavill. And that's not my point here. My point is, if you're going to fan cast people as Henry Cavill, you better have watched The Witcher. And
That's
that's what
right.
I need to talk about. So, in The Witcher, there's these witches that get taken from a young age and taken to this place to kind of train to become these all powerful, like, right hands of kings.
Uh-huh.
And there's always like something a little wrong with them when they get taken as babies. And that's why their parents so willingly give them up. And I could not
Mm,
stop thinking about that when I was thinking about the diviners.
that is such a great connection. And that goes back to the thing that the abbess said, which I found here. She called Six strange and special and new. And to your point, like there was like clearly something after these diviners like first drowned when they come out as diviners. It's just like off and a little weird. And you're like, why? Where does this come from?
Yeah. And so I definitely think that Rachel Gillig is a Witcher fan. And I'm not going to call it plagiarism, but there are some connections.
Don't call out my girl. Do not even come for Rachel Bartholomew Gillig, please. I also am intrigued by what your fan cast might be of Rory. Do you have one?
Cass, I
If it's not
actually
Henry Cavill.
needed to talk to you about this in public. I have no idea what this man looks
Oh, now we're in
like.
public. We've come out of private.
Yeah, we're no longer talking in my Witcher fanfic corner. This is now public. I don't know what this man looks like. Do you?
What do you mean you don't know? I
I
think I
think I
know.
was so stuck on like the diviners and the gargoyles and the lands and the omens and the
Hmm.
tools that I'm like, did anybody ever tell me what color his hair was?
Dark, like dark, basically like jet black, like curly hair. It's like very mussy. It's like always in his face. He obviously has a chiseled jaw, of course. He's
Is he
very
very
muscular.
tall?
He's very tall, but she keeps noting that he like intentionally slouches, which I think is
Mm.
probably some sort of like power play. Like when he's around other people that he like knows he's more powerful than, that he'll just like slouch a little bit to like make him feel more approachable or make himself feel more approachable.
Or he
Um,
secretly has gargoyle wings and they're so heavy he has to bend over.
yeah, or that. That's a trope. Secret gargoyle. Okay, I do not have a fan cast for him yet because I continue to go to the lead singer of All American Rejects, and I'm like, that's not right.
Oh, no, it's
That's
not
not right.
right.
It's not.
It's not right. I totally agree with you, but it's not okay.
It's not okay. It's not right. So I need to
Especially,
sit with it.
yeah, with this weird comeback tour they're doing. We can't.
Exactly. So yeah, and then for Sybil, I keep picturing, do you remember in House of Dragon, the first season, young what's her face? Rhaenyra?
Yeah.
I kept picturing her as Sybil, a six.
Okay, tell me this. Tell me
Okay,
this. I
I
didn't
will.
I didn't think I knew what anybody looked like because they're all covered in shrouds. What color
You
is
can,
her hair?
you only can't see her eyes. And I think her hair, they described it as like silvery.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, when I was picturing these diviners at first, I'm like, they are in nun costumes. They're in nun costumes with their whole freaking
Costumes.
hair
They're not even
covered.
real.
Yeah, they're in costume.
They're cosplaying as nuns.
For
It's
real.
actually, we're reading the Sister Act.
And I thought, I don't know what any of them look like. All I'm picturing is numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But along with that storyline, they
Uh,
also talk, as you assume they're like these weak little girls, like in their little nun
yeah,
costumes, but then
yeah,
they
the
keep
costumes.
describing how strong Sybil is.
Yeah, I mean, she's stoneworking. Like, she's got to be kind of muscly to do that,
Right? And
you
so do
know?
you picture her as like a tall, athletic build? Because I thought she was a wisp of paper.
No, I kind of pictured her as like a little bit more like short and stout, I feel like.
Mmm.
Mm. Well,
Mmm.
stay tuned to see if Emily agrees with me or not as we get into more of these
Wow.
chapters.
Stay tuned. I'm gonna do a secondary episode where I reread chapters 1 through 10 and then let you guys know what else I found.
Okay, why don't we promise to do our final fan casts on our final episode where we do our full
Okay.
debrief? Okay.
Agree.
Okay, my last bit of the week is completely random, but I get these daily vocab words on my phone, and yesterday my vocab word was mendacious, and
Cassie, they're
it's spelled,
listening to you. Your phone is
oh,
listening to you.
okay, isn't that wild though? But it's spelled Mend, whatever. And the definition of it was dishonest or untruthful in speech or conduct.
Who is the liar? That is
Truth or
literally
lie trope. Truth or lie trope.
one of my questions is literally who is lying? Who is telling the truth? What is going on here?
Someone tell us. Rachel, tell us. Bartholomew. Help.
I only trust the gargoyle.
Same, same. I don't trust anyone else.
Are you
Um,
freaking kidding me?
isn't that wild? I gasped in the middle of my kitchen when I saw it. I was like, what the fuck?
I cannot believe.
I know. And for those of us listening, Rory's last name is Mendacious, but it's spelled with a Y, but then everything else is spelled the same as mendacious.
Oh my god, I am shook to my
Rachel,
core.
the fucking genius that you are. I'm
Okay,
coming for you.
she uses a lot of larger vocabulary words that
She
I
does.
don't bother to look up, and now I'm like, I need a dictionary alongside this book. Wow,
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we just need our daily vocab words and that's it.
that's crazy. We just need Apple to keep listening to Cassie's phone so she can let us know
Pretty
what the
much.
words use.
Pretty much.
All
Okay,
right,
so should
Cass.
we wrap it up on if we would survive this week or not?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, I would definitely not survive this week. The amount of drownings that these diviners were going through, I was like, there's no fucking way. I would never come back from that.
Yeah.
And then they're like throwing up and getting sick afterwards. I was like, no, I get a cough and I'm down for like 48 hours straight.
Were you kind of picturing it as an ayahuasca trip, or was that just me?
I don't don't know. I think I was so triggered by the fact that they were drowning that I was struggling to picture it as anything else.
Okay, you know what I said? I said I
What?
would survive this week.
Oh, she's fucking delusional. I was like, if she says she can survive, I'm gonna lose my
Do you
mind.
want to know why?
Why? Why?
Because I'm not very good at swimming, but I'm very good at drowning. And so I would be a great diviner. I can drown. Nobody would even have to hold me down. I would drown on my own.
I'm sorry. How do you know that you're great at drowning?
Oh,
How?
I've almost drowned so many times. I like one time tried to do like a flip under the water. I could touch. It was the shallow end and I got stuck upside down. And I like couldn't find my way to the top. It was like 3.5 feet of water. So I was like made to be a diviner.
Okay, we're gonna discuss this outdoors.
Take me away, Alice.
Oh my God. Okay, I think that leaves us off on a good spot for this
Yep.
week. So we will pick up where we left off next week, next Sunday, same time, same place. So bring your blankets, bring your boyfriends, and we'll see you then.
See ya.